All right, everyone. So we're going to begin here picking up on the PowerPoints that we left off on in our previous lecture. So we're going to start with the nature of language. So I have this slide up and I'm just going to go ahead and play the slideshow. Oops, I just did play from start. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and skip all of this and go to here. Nature of language. So what is language? Of course, it's complex, it's systematic, and it's rule governed. We already know that. Now, sorry, I'm just keeping track of time. So the nature of language, let's talk about linguistic competence, or an individual's implicit knowledge about the rules of their language, right? Everyone has just a knowledge, if you're able to use a language, a knowledge of the rules of the language, even if you're not a linguist, right? You can understand the language and you can create an infinite number of sentences and use a variety of language in social settings. And this is with a limited number of vocabulary. I can go so far as to say that there's a saying that as long as you get the core vocabulary, which is between like 3,000 and 5,000 words of a language, then you should be able to speak fluently in that language in any regard and in any setting, given that you would understand how to convert verbs. As long as you can convert verbs or change verbs from one tense to the next, appropriate for whoever you're speaking to, whatever the audience, whatever the noun demands, then as long as you get about 3,000 to 5,000 vocabulary words, you are fluent, my friend. And if you think about it, think about the few words that you use on a regular basis, right? I have my default words that I always go to, like always, right? I could say something else. I could say that I tend to go to, or that each time I find myself arriving at these terms, right? There's so many different ways to say one thing, yet we have these brain patterns, these pathways that allow our brains to naturally just trickle in line with a train of thought. And so I really want you to think about the words that you say and think about the way that you use words in a language, and you'd be surprised to find that with very little you can get a lot done because your cognitive flexibility allows you to create an infinite possibility with a finite set of terms. So the last point here is native speakers and listeners of a language learn a linguistic rule system, right? And this rule system, that's a typo, is divided into three components, which are content, form, and use. Or in this case, I have form, content, and use. So let's explore these aspects a little bit deeper, right? The terms content, form, and use when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy of language. So beginning with content, what is content? I like to start with content because content is the what, right? It's what you're speaking about. It's actually the meaning behind the words that you use. And so content is extremely important. And when we speak about content, we're speaking about semantics, okay? So semantics is the subsystem of language that deals with words, right? Word meanings, the links that bind the words. And when we think of words, we're thinking of representations of symbols. Words are symbols, right? Symbols represent meaning. So words are just another symbol for a symbol, right? Because the symbol is the image in our mind. That's why it's called an image, right? It's called an image because it's an idea that you visualize. And when you attach word to it, now you're able to communicate that idea to someone else so that they can get the same picture that you have in your mind. When you really think about the power of words, it's incredible because words shape reality. And I want you to really understand this, not on some spiritual hokey dokey stuff, but I mean, I am very spiritual, but really, regardless of what your perspective is, words have power in them, and the meaning of words shapes our realities. So it's very important for you to think about that as a speech language pathologist, because you're helping people to put meaning to words or to use words or to understand words. But the nature of all communication is in the semantics, is what do you mean? So let's start here and really understand that it's very important to know the semantic component of language, the content piece, and really understanding that words can have multiple meanings. Words can be literal and non-literal. And so understanding different types of words, root words and their affixes and their structures and what the true meaning of a word is will help you in so many ways in your life. Okay, so relational meaning. Children are constantly acquiring meanings that code relationships among people, objects, and events. And that's called relational, right? Because we're relating, and that's how we're acquiring these word meanings. And so existence, disappearance, recurrence, and non-existence are phases in the cycle of relational meaning. Existence being you're noting that an object is there, right? So when you first have a child, and this is a great point to think about when you see the videos in this module or in the next module on early childhood development. In these videos with these babies, you'll see that the first thing we're doing is we're referencing a point, right? Not literally a point in space, but we want to draw that child's attention to an object. And so when we get children who are able to recognize the existence of objects, now we can start to teach them, we can start to play with them, we can start to add words because they're starting to have the same point of reference as us. Once we're able to get a same point of reference, then we can start to teach language, and we start with words, right? We always start with words and word meanings. So again, existence notes an object, and so you're saying, hey, what's that? Oh, that's this thing, right? Next is disappearance. That's when you note that an entity has gone away. You note that it's no longer there. Then you have recurrence, is when you request or the entity reappears and you note that it reappears, right? So you're starting to use language that reflects that, right? So first the language is, it exists, it's there, then it doesn't exist, it's all gone, it's bye-bye, right? And I'm talking about young children, but of course this is a continuum actually. And then we have the recurrence pieces where it's like, oh, it's back, or give me more. The point is that we're expanding on what already is, right? And or we're returning what isn't to what is. And then we have non-existence again, which denotes that the entity is absent. So it's just not there. It's none, right? There's not any, versus all gone, right? There's none left. So there's a difference there. And just understanding these relational meanings are starting to help children learn concepts, linguistic concepts that then go on to help them to be able to read, to write, to think critically, to analyze, to use deductive reasoning, and so many more higher level executive function, cognitive linguistic skills. It starts with a word. All right, so let's pause here, and then I'm going to pick up this video on form and on phonology.